Hello, I'm Robert Barr. I'd like to talk to you about people being known by their fruits. Jesus said, "You will know them by their fruits." We're to judge fruit, not people. Too often we judge people by the clothes they wear, the color of their skin, the organizations they belong to. Those are all superficial things and do not tell us who they really are. People in nice clothes can be generous or they can be very tight with their money. When we judge someone by their color and don't get to know them, we're judging them by what others say about them. It may not really reflect who they are. It is only as we get to know them that we can find out who they really are. In high school, I worked for a while in the inner city at a neighborhood center run by 5 churches. Only a couple of the staff were white. Just about everybody in the neighborhood was black. I'd grown up in a rural area where there were no black people. And while I saw a few black people when I went to the city, they were just part of the crowd going by, and I paid no attention to them. As a result, I saw no reason to treat those I worked with any different than I would have treated anyone else. I got along with them with no problems. One day, a black man came to help out. The kids I worked with did not like him at all, even though he was black. He had been successful in business and looked down on the kids because they were poor. The way he treated them meant more to them than the color of his skin. Jesus tells us that we will know who people are by the fruits they produce. A good tree will not produce bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. People may put on appearances to deceive other people, but they will prove themselves by what they produce. The early church was known for its love, and people were attracted to it by that love. People saw the love they had for each other and for those around them as they assisted those around them who were in need. I studied sociology in college, and we were asked to do papers on various social problems as part of our classes. I was confused by the talk about Catholics being generally poor, Jews being generally rich, and Protestants being generally middle-class working people. As a result, I did a study on how the church's beliefs affected their members. I found out that the Catholic Church, many Protestant churches, and the Jewish people had widely differing views on work. Churches in America were actively teaching about living the Christian life, and they were very successful in teaching their views to their members. It affected the kinds of jobs their members took and how successful they were. If someone was active in church, it was fairly easy to guess the type of church they attended by the job they held and how successful they were. Protestants who attended church occasionally, but were not active, were often less successful than those who attended regularly. The church was so successful, the society in America was shaped by biblical values. Many of those who did not attend church often accepted the Protestant work ethic, since it was widely taught in the schools and reflected in the media. Today, the churches are not as actively teaching their beliefs to members, including their views on work. Their teaching is more theological and less oriented to everyday life. As a result, our society is becoming increasingly shaped by liberal views, and many members get many of their beliefs from society and the media rather than from the church. While early 20th century American society was shaped by the church, later 20th century and early 21st century are being shaped by liberal thinkers who are quite vocal in stating their beliefs, while the church is relatively quiet about its beliefs. As a result, the church is also becoming increasingly shaped by the society around it. In early America, the church was highly respected, and communities did not feel that they were civilized until they had a church. While the wilderness was quite wild, the early circuit riders and the churches that were established did a great deal to tame the areas and establish Christian values. Christian values were widely accepted, and the Bible and prayer had a prominent place in the schools. Pastors also openly preached about social problems. Today, the Bible and prayer are banned from many schools, and many pastors are silent about many of the social problems people face. In fact, many in the media and government are trying to silence the church and prevent it from speaking out. Some communities are enacting zoning laws to bar churches from building or expanding, since churches pay no taxes, and they would rather replace them with businesses that pay taxes. Conservatives, particularly Christians, are widely attacked in the media and by politicians, and many Christians cannot figure out why they are so hated. Many church people ask what caused the change in the attitude of society towards the church. I think the answer lies in a little-known book that I picked up in a library book sale a long time ago. During the Cold War, Russia and the United States were threatening each other with nuclear weapons. But they're also seeking to win over the support of other countries. Russia was trying to spread communism by force, while the United States was trying to spread democracy. Russia was shipping weapons and military hardware to African and South American countries to help their governments suppress the citizens, while the United States was shipping surplus food to help starving people. You would think the people would welcome the Americans and hate the Russians. However, the people would riot in the streets, telling the Americans to leave. Americans could not figure out why they were so hated. A study was commissioned to find an answer, and the results were published in that little book. It wasn't a bestseller, and in fact, I doubt if many copies were ever printed. It was mainly a textbook for those who made government policies. I just happened to see a copy in a library book sale. The study found that the United States shipped vast quantities of surplus food to Africa and South America to help feed the people. But the governments did not have any way to distribute it, so it often just sat on the docks. The Russians sent trucks and soldiers to the governments to help them suppress their people, so the Russians collected the food at the dock and distributed it to the people. Since the people saw the Russians delivering the food and distributing it, they assumed the food came from Russia. In addition, the Russians told the people that America was very rich but did not care about them. So the people loved the Russians and hated the Americans. Politicians recognized the problem and began making arrangements to take over distribution of the food. As a result, public opinion in Africa and South America began to turn. They threw the Russians out and began welcoming the Americans. It's very similar to the church. In the past, most social services were run by the church, and many Christians openly helped those around them. Since the 1950s, the government has increasingly taken over social services. Many churches now send their members to government agencies or private agencies to get help. People in need now often go to the government or private agencies and not to the church when they need help. Many of those I saw when I worked for the Salvation Army belonged to the churches, but said their church did not help. While most of those churches did not provide any help, some of them did, but their members were not aware of it. As a result, many people no longer see the church as a caring organization. While many Christians give a great deal to help those in need, a lot is through taxes to support government programs or through donations to community agencies. While many of those community agencies started as church organizations, many are now independent agencies, and most recipients don't realize that they began as a church organization. We have allowed the government and independent agencies to take over helping those in need, so those in need see the government as caring and not the church. In addition, the media paints the church as a disruptive organization causing conflict in the community when it opposes government policies. I saw the effect of this in a church I served. It was a Presbyterian church in a working class neighborhood. It was surrounded by railroad switch yards and farmers' fields, so it was restricted to drawing members from the neighborhood. Factories closed and the church members who worked there moved away in search of work. The church lost 100 members in 5 years and had only 25 left. The church families were replaced by poor families who rented the houses left behind. The people were not attracted to the ritualistic worship of the Presbyterian Church, and there were Pentecostal churches in the community that were more attractive to them. The church had 5 different pastors in 5 years, but no one could turn the church around. No Presbyterian pastor wanted it, and I was available, so they asked me to pastor the church. They had a government poverty program running the church to help them pay the bills, but wanted me to help them get rid of it and find another funding source. No other church in the area had a program that attracted 40 to 50 non-church people to the church every week. I finally convinced the church to stop trying to chase them out and invite them in. When they did, the church began to grow as the residents began to see that the church cared about them. Thank you.